sanctions on 4 ICC judges. Washington's move came in response to the court's arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and past cases involving U.S. troops in Afghanistan. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the ICC must be free to act without pressure, while Council President Antonio Costa called the court a cornerstone of international justice. Among those sanctioned, judges from Uganda, Peru, Benin, and Slovenia, which has now called for the EU to immediately activate its blocking statute. That law prevents European companies from enforcing sanctions Brussels deems illegal. The ICC's governing body has condemned the sanctions as regrettable attempts to undermine judicial independence. The move comes as the court already faces scrutiny, including a UN probe involving Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan. Now we have guests joining us. Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, he's a former diplomat, joining us live from Washington. Thank you for joining us today. What message does the U.S. send to the world by sanctioning ICC judges? Is this a break from global rules or just defending its allies, according to you?
Well, this is not the first time that U.S. has sanctioned, some authorities in the ICC. Earlier, they had sanctioned the Chief Public Prosecutor, Karim Khan, and now they have gone to the next step of sanctioning 4 judges of the ICC. This is a serious development in many ways, because earlier the Western countries were acting in sync, in unison. They would consult each other, they would move ahead together, and they would not take steps against each other, which would be divisive. Now, since the time that the ICC has sanctioned Prime Minister Netanyahu, for example, for war crimes, and since the time that they said that US troops in Afghanistan, they can be sort of investigated for war crimes, there has been a lot of difficulties in the US to accept the jurisdiction and the judgments of the ICC. We have seen that even in the case of China on the Philippines issue of the islands. China refused to accept their judgment and their rulings. So it is making the international system, legal system also, a little weak. I think it is about time, since most of these systems were set up in 1945 and 80 years have elapsed. It is time to take a fresh look at all these organizations, all these institutions, and see what are the new realities of the world, where Bharat, India, is one of the more important nations of the world, where it is not even represented in the UN Security Council till today in the permanent membership. You have India with the maximum number of people in the world, the biggest population of the world, more than any other country, including China, and not represented appropriately or adequately in the United Nations. That is an anachronism for today. Now, Bharat also brings in a lot of traditional, systems, understanding, values, ancient values, wisdom, to a lot of these organizations. So for it to be more prominently taking a decision-making role or a policy-making role in many of these bodies will bring a lot of balance. For example, the rupture which is taking place between Europe and Washington, even on Ukraine today, because of vested interest, because of the deep state, because of the military-industrial complexes of various countries, the ruptures are there, and they have different policies on the same issue. India being a neutral country, now China is more involved in the war on the side of Russia, along with some other countries like Iran and North Korea. Similarly, the European countries are more involved directly in the war on basis of Ukraine. So India is a country which can come with a neutral perspective, which can come with a balanced perspective, which can lend a very balanced voice to decision making in a lot of these forums. So I think it is a serious evolution which is taking place in the world. It is also, unprecedented in many ways, and it is not a good thing for the world because the rule of law and the rule of order, which had been imposed by the Western countries on the basis of their understanding of, what is law, which may not have been acceptable to many other countries of the world, but at least there was some sort of understanding amongst themselves. That is also breaking to some extent now. So let us see how the things proceed from here.
I would like to touch on the legitimacy of ICC as well. Can the ICC maintain its legitimacy when major powers like the US openly defy or undermine its mandate?
Well, if you have not agreed to the full scope of the application of the judgments of the ICC, I forget the exact terminology which is used, but those countries which have not signed on to that level of acceptance of ICC judgments, those judgments they do not need to abide by that. So you see, Netanyahu has been able to come here to the US on several occasions, even after this judgment was passed, without any problems. So it makes it quite sort of irrelevant. That is why you need to see what are the possibilities of new paradigms, new parameters, new institutions. You have a lot of technological development today. You have AI, which has developed and is developing at a very fast pace. Not only generative AI, but various other forms of fundamental AI. So you have to start looking at those aspects also and see how you can factor in and leverage all those advances into the new institutions which you have to create. So the time has come to create institutions which are more effective and which have a greater sort of acceptance by the Committee of Nations. So even the United Nations may need a recast or may need to be changed completely, because the League of Nations in 1945 was set aside because it failed to prevent world wars when it was created after World War I. So similarly, United Nations was created after World War II, and now we are in a situation where there's a European regional war practically. Though initially it started off as a Russia-Ukraine war, it has expanded its scope. So the institutions of the UN also are very much in doubt in terms of big question marks being raised. For example, the conduct of the WHO after the COVID epidemic was very dubious in the sense of not investing China adequately and correctly for the origins of the virus. So they are under a lot of international pressure, which is contrary to the stated objectives on which they were formed, for the benefit of mankind, for the health of mankind. So similarly, the UN is not able to deliver or deliver to its briefs or charters or objectives. So how do you now re-envision a new world with some new organizations which are it's not going to be easy because the world has become a very divisive place. You have the Islamic terrorism, which is a major threat for the world, which will become an increasing threat, the jihadi Islam. And then you have the China threat, the aggression by China. So these are two major preponderant threats which the world has also to factor in, how to deal with it. So to create new concepts, new ideas, new thoughts, new institutions, it is not going to be an easy venture, but it's a required venture.
And how might this developing crisis affect the future of the ICC, and could it push more countries to withdraw or distance themselves from this?
Yes, definitely that is a possibility, because if you have the US actively campaigning against the ICC, and if they ask some of their aligned countries to withdraw their support to the ICC, that may happen. Some of the other countries like Israel may also want other countries to withdraw their support to the ICC. So the ICC as it is a semi-functional sort of organization, because it has not been able to implement any of its decisions in the recent past. So it will only become weaker as time passes, because even the US sanctioning 4 judges, while it has managed to get a lot of attention in the European capitals, I have not seen any great reactions from the other countries of the world so far. So they are not very interested anyway in what happens to the ICC, even if it is negative to the ICC.
Thank you very much.